The amount of news that have come out of the last 2 days of Chargers practice is absolutely insane. I'm sure it felt great for the boys to get back to San Diego. Chargers Now is presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Will Ortner. On today's show, we've got 5 big stories that we are going to break down. Rashawn Slater, where is he at injury-wise? Yesterday, it was a lot of doom and gloom. Today, is it going to be positive? Tuli Tuipulotu is back. He was participating in today's practice, albeit a walk-through shells type of a practice, but he was still out on the practice field, and he was working with the team. Did he do 11 on 11? I'll let you know. We're going to talk about Tre Harris. He's looking really good, and offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel has certainly noticed that. Omarion Hampton, he's growing as a running back, and he's growing as a player in the National Football League. Last, we are going to talk about the left guard position battle because things are about to get very interesting in that spot, and we get another group of 2 players that are battling out for that spot and sharing the load in a way that they don't normally do. Lots of positives all around. Yesterday was a bit of a negative day for Chargers fans. Today is going to be a positive day for Chargers fans. I'm telling you, there was a lot of really good things going around. If you are glad that Rashawn Slater, by the way, he was back at practice today. If you're glad about that, you're going to go and hit the thumbs up button on today's video. Let everyone know that you're fired up, that Rashawn Slater was back out on the field. He was not one of the guys that ended up missing practice today for the Chargers. Now, let's dive deeper into Slater because yesterday he ended up having to go to the medical tent and he did not return to practice. Now, this was the Chargers' first padded practice of the 2026 NFL season, and it is a big deal that Slater ended up having to miss that time because obviously he had such a significant knee injury last year. It cost him the entire year. You had a lot of Chargers fans that were worried, freaking out. They were not in a good spot when it came to Slater. He was back practicing, warming up, and he was back doing 11 on 11s. That is a gigantic thing for this team because we all know, as well as Rashawn Slater has played in camp, it is only going to get better as the year goes on. And this team is very reliant on the offensive tackle depth. Last year, we saw what happens when this team doesn't have that depth. It's one of the worst units in the National Football League. And that's not their fault. They were running basically 5 backups out on the field last year. This year, you're trying to not have that same issue happen. So the fact that Rashawn Slater was back, running around, doing the things that he needed to do, that is fantastic news for Chargers fans. And it is certainly something that should fire you up because it seems like the injury wasn't something that was significant enough to keep Slater out. It was just an injury where everyone said, hey, you know what? Things don't feel right. They're not in the position that you want them to be in right now. That is okay. Let's give you some time to rest, recover, and get back out on to the field for this team. Are you fired up that Rashawn Slater returned to practice today and was back out on the field moving, looking like he was back ready to go? Maybe not 100%, but he's ready to be back in the action. Let us know down below in our comment section, yes or no. Obviously, you know me. You know that this is a very positive thing for Chargers fans. Next, we're going to get into some great news on Tuli Tuipulotu because the contract negotiations have not been ideal for him and the Los Angeles Chargers. I think a lot of Chargers fans were really hoping that this deal would get done. So much so that Tuli has been operating as more of a hold-in right now with the Chargers. He's essentially been at everything that he needs to do. He's been at practice, but he has not been participating in the way that you would typically hope your starting edge rusher to do so. We learned today from Chris Rim that Tuli was back and participated in 11 on 11. Now, it is important to remember that this was not a padded practice, but he was still out on the field moving around during the 11 on 11 portion, and that is a great sign for this Chargers team as he works his way back to being a main impactful player with this team, and he works his way into a spot where if he's out participating in 11 on 11, doesn't that make you feel like that extension is coming very soon? We've got so much more to discuss on today's show, but I need to let you know that it is made possible by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports picks app and is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Let's look at my lineup for the football action going on later on this year. I have the more on Justin Herbert pass yards. I believe the offense will be much improved in LA. That should hopefully lead to more passing yards for Herbert. That's why I have the more on his passing yards. I have the more on Quentin Johnston receiving TDs. I believe that Johnson will have more opportunities to catch the football with a hopefully improved offense in Los Angeles. That's why I have the more on his receiving TDs. I also have the more on Rashid Shaheed receiving yards. A full offseason in Seattle should help Shaheed build better chemistry with Darnold. That's why I have the more on his receiving yards. New user offer. Best of all, play your first $5 and get $150 in lineups if you win. Just use code HMA when you sign up. That's right. Prize Picks just switched up their offer, so there's no better time to join. Lock in and win that first lineup. That's code HMA at sign up to get $150 in bonus lineups if you win your first $5 plus lineup. Like I said earlier, Tuli being in a spot where he's participating in 11-on-11 drills tells me, or at least gets me hopeful, that he is going to be back out on the field for this team very soon. He's been a very impactful player, obviously having a lot of success last year in Jesse Minter's defense, but more importantly, showing signs every single year that he is getting better and better. Sack numbers go up, tackle numbers go up, TFL numbers go up, everything goes up for Tuli. And he is certainly someone that the Chargers are going to want to make sure that he is locked up for a very long time. He's a very good player that can get after the quarterback in an elite way. I also think that some of this has to do with Akheem Mesidor showing the type of player that he is. I think that Mesidor has shown through the last week and a half or so of training camp that he is a force to be reckoned with, that he is a player that a lot of Chargers fans are going to fall in love with, but a lot of players on this team, whether it's Tuli or Khalil Mack, maybe even Kennard, maybe even Dupree, the more that they're out on the field with a guy like Mesidor, life is going to be easier for them because they have a counterpart that can perform at a high level just like they can. When I look at the young core edge rushers for this Chargers team, it certainly feels like you have a strong and elite future between those two players. There are two individuals that are scary. They will scare their opponents and can certainly get after the passer in an elite way. This crew should excite Chargers fans, and it should excite you that Tuli was back out practicing. Let's go to the offensive side of the football now because Alex Insdorf, he ended up transcribing some quotes from offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel, and it was all about Tre Harris. And the more and more that McDaniel talked about Tre Harris, the more and more excited I got about his potential. Right now, we are learning that Harris is certainly the type of player that every team could want. He's someone who's not afraid to insert himself into the blocking scheme, which is something you want to do as a wide receiver if you are in the Mike McDaniel system. He's also someone who is not afraid to put his body on the line for his team and show that he is a all-around player. A lot of wide receivers, they just want to catch the football. That's not necessarily Harris, but I think he's going to do a lot of catching of the football because of the type of matchup that he is, and McDaniel certainly believes in that. When you look at last year's stats for Harris, I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat anything. They're not great stats. You would prefer to have more out of a player that you had views of and had beliefs in, that he would end up being a integral piece of your team. But to sit here and say that Tre Harris is bad or is laughable or is in a position where he's not ready to go yet, I think that that is incorrect as well. When you look at the Chargers wide receiver depth chart, look, he's really the third guy between McConkey and Johnston, but I certainly think that he has shown this year that he is a valued red zone target, big, strong, physical hands. He is certainly someone that you are not going to feel comfortable with as an opposing defensive coordinator of leaving your defensive back just one-on-one with him at an island. Harris is a strong, capable player that is going to add to this team. I have him as a breakout candidate for me because he is going to be in an offensive system that wants to spread the football around and is not afraid to make sure that the wide receiver that is the hottest in that given game gets more touches. In the Roman offense, it was very simple. You feed the beast or you feed the main guy in this situation. And a lot of times that wasn't Harris. In McDaniel's system, it's going to be who's open. Get him the football. Let him go do special things. Sign sign top-end players, draft top-end players, because they are going to be impactful players on this Chargers team. I think that Harris can be that. I think that Harris has a shot for being a breakout player this year. Let us know if you agree with that sentiment or you disagree with that sentiment down below in our comment section, because I certainly am interested in hearing what you have to say. I don't think we've talked enough about Omarion Hampton here on the channel, and so I thought today would be an excellent day to make sure that we did so, because Mike McDaniel, he was at the press conference before practice, and he made it very clear that he was happy with where Omarion Hampton was at right now, and I think that this is something important that we need to touch on, because Hampton was someone who there was a lot of belief he was going to have a lot of success last year, and while he did well, I'm not going to sit here and say that he really blew the doors off of anyone. When you look at the stats for Hampton last season, yes, there was obviously an injury, and that certainly hampered him and some of the growth that he could have potentially had. But to say that he is someone that does not need to get the football in his hands more is simply incorrect, and he certainly is someone who is growing under McDaniel's tutelage. He needs to show that he can improve on last year's numbers, but I think you can also look at last year's numbers, extrapolate them out over the entire season, and realize, well, that's a guy who would have been a 1,000-yard rusher if he stays healthy, if not get even better than that. And that was behind one of, if not the worst offensive lines in the National Football League. He will not be behind that offensive line going into the next year, and I think that's a great thing for this team. It's a great thing for Hampton and his long-term success. We have one piece of information left that I want to make sure that we break down, but before we do that, I need to let you know that today's show is also made possible by SeatGeek. When it's time to get out of the house, there's not many better options right now than a ball game. And with SeatGeek being MLB's official ticket marketplace, your tickets are fully guaranteed and instantly fulfilled in your account after purchase. I was having some fun last night, went on to SeatGeek and thought, hey, let's look at some Chargers tickets. Now, you know me, I'm looking at that opening day game against the Cardinals. I want to always try and find the best deals possible, so I'm looking for those green dots. And if I can see a bunch of touchdowns from up close, I'm going to make sure that I do that. Whether it's a Chargers game with a special lady friend or a Co-Wetzel concert with the boys, SeatGeek has your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. So look for the green dots. Green means good. Red means bad. And of course, I have a code for you guys. You can use code CHAT10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with the promo code CHAT10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you so very much, SeatGeek. Chris Rim detailed the last piece of information that I wanted to make sure we got out to all of you. Obviously, that left guard position, it's going to be updated every single day. There was always a new battle, and we had a different grouping that was rotated on today, which I thought was very interesting. Branson Taylor and Trevor Penning, they were the two that were rotating in at that left guard spot today. I wondered to a degree if that had anything to do with Coyote Oshika spending more time with the one group yesterday than was expected, although you would have thought that maybe they would have reverted back one day. You got another grouping. It's very clear that Mike McDaniel, Jim Harbaugh, and the rest of this Chargers offensive coaching staff, they are going to let these guys battle it out. And so the battle is clearly raging on in Los Angeles as they try and search and find who's going to be the starting left guard for this team. If you had to ask me right now, I think your guess is as good as mine. Seems very, very open. It'll be interesting if we can figure out who that next left guard is going to be sooner rather than later. At some point, you got to make a decision. Hopefully, it's before roster cut down day. Hit that subscribe button. Don't miss any of the content that we have here on the channel. We've got you covered. Chargers news, rumors, highlights, updates, analysis. We discuss it all here. You do not want to miss that type of content. Thank you guys so much for coming in, hanging out with us today. Can't wait to see you next time. And as always, bolt the freak up.